Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of J&A Talk with your host, Jurassic John and Anne. And today we're going to be talking about a YouTuber by the name of David Pakman. David Pakman is a left-leaning political commentator, social democrat, and he's had his channel for around a decade, got about 1.2 million subscribers, and he's widely kind of a controversial figure among some elements of the left as to how left he really is.
Yeah, there's often a lot of debate on whether or not he's a genuine leftist who actually believes in some kind of I don't think he's generally post-capitalist as far as I know, but just like whether or not he is actually a tool for the left, or is he more of a co-op by the more nefarious parts of the DNC and the Democratic Party to, I guess, sideline progressive ideals. I guess in this episode, we're just going to have a bit of a debate between the two of us on those ideas, of course, bring supporting evidence and such, and just kind of see where this takes us and whether or not we can come to some kind of agreement between it.
Yeah, and I will start with the argument that while I do think that Pakman is more of a moderate left-leaning person compared to a Kyle Kalinske or Sam Cedar, Jimmy Dore, or some of the others, I do think that he is a genuine progressive, and he does, for the most part, advocate for progressive issues such as single payer, minimum wage, UBI, etc.
And I kind of see him more as not necessarily a full-on co-op, but just kind of someone who is a bit too moderate for me to call him maybe the term progressive doesn't really hold as much water, especially when we're talking about someone like David Pakman. Mainly, he caught a lot of flack last go around because of his, I wouldn't say pro-coup in Bolivia, but just more there is no coup in Bolivia, a video that got terrible ratings on YouTube. That's one of his lowest, most disliked videos he has on so far. I think another thing that kind of goes against him being a comrade in my eyes is his just kind of jumping on the bandwagon of calling Ilhan Omar an anti-Semite, or at least implying that her tweets are anti-Semitic, and just kind of broadly generalizing what the actual BDS movement is and what it means, and instead of just saying that because she points out that there's money in politics, that it's playing on old anti-Semitic tropes and whatnot.
Yeah, I'd say that, and I agree with you definitely on the him kind of smearing Ilhan Omar as an anti-Semite, when he said something about the Benjamins and how that's just Jewish money, when Benjamin, literally everybody calls a $100 bill a Ben Franklin or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, that was pretty dumb. But I think that his views on BDS are generally just a difference in strategy. He does support, he does oppose the Netanyahu government. He supports Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank. He says that East Jerusalem should be in Palestinian control, and he believes in a two-state solution. But in terms of his views on BDS, he just says it's not inherently anti-Semitic, but it does provide cover for anti-Semites.
Yikes.
And that there are contradictions within the BDS movement, and says it may push away potential allies. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all that, but mm-hmm. I can see there is a genuine argument to be had on the left on strategies like BDS and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. I think that's completely valid. Given full credit, there are a lot of people who oppose that conspiratorial,
like a Nick Fuentes or one of those types.
It's I would hope that you would give Ilhan Omar the benefit of the doubt when it comes to that she's not just some crazy anti-Semite, but they are genuine people who view who are anti-Israel, not just anti their regime that displaces and leads to the suffering and death of a lot of Palestinians. I think you can definitely oppose that without it being anti-Semitic, obviously. I think with his views on BDS, I also didn't agree with it on the basis that he, at least in the way I interpreted his video, was that he talked a lot about how one single person or a group of people not supporting Israeli businesses wouldn't really do much, which, that's obvious. Like, one person going vegan isn't going to end climate change, but an entire group or governments supporting policies that would end animal agriculture would definitely make more of an impact. And I think that's what Ilhan Omar is fighting for, just like to end the government subsidizing of.
Yeah, I'd say that I pretty much agree with the BDS stuff. I think he mischaracterized what the BDS movement represents in many cases. Now, not to say every person who supports BDS, but I think the majority of the people who support the BDS movement, they want the government to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel for their treatment of the Palestinians. When he, I guess, more or less made it out to be like it's the individuals who are just not wanting to buy from like Israeli stores or something from that matter. If you guys want to watch the videos yourselves, we're going to have them in the link below so you can more or less get your own opinion. But that's just what we got from it in terms of his BDS videos and whatnot. But I will say that I do think that he does come from a genuine place of wanting to broker peace between Israel and Palestine. I can't say the same for some like more moderate leftist, or I wouldn't say more liberals. Although David Pakman, I guess you could say, is a liberal, but I do think he's on the more progressive end of being a liberal.
I just think his, just like what seems more, I guess, difficult with that is just he's a very intelligent dude as far as I can tell. Like, he should know that, there's a tweet that Ilhan Omar quote tweeted where someone was talking about, like, why are all the politicians, like, fiercely supporting the Israel government, stuff like that. And she responded with AIPAC, which is very true. I don't think there's anyone in the White House right now who doesn't have any tie to AIPAC or like spoke at their convention recently. I think maybe they didn't go around this go around because of COVID and stuff like that, but a lot of politicians have spoken at AIPAC. A lot of politicians have gotten money from them. It's not a conspiracy to say that a major lobbying firm has a lot of control over our politicians, just like it's not anti-Semitic or racist or any other kind of bigotry to say that the oil industry has a lot of control over a lot of Republican senators. It's just knowing your enemies and actually genuinely pointing out who they are helps to actually push for change instead of pretending that it's just all crazy conspiratorial people in their basement or something like that.
I pretty much agree. Like, I agree with mainly I do agree that I have disagreements with David on strategy on BDS. I don't necessarily think that that's a strike against him necessarily being leftist or progressive. I just think that part is a disagreement about strategy. Although I will say his attack on Ilhan Omar is fairly indefensible. And his take on the Bolivian coup is fairly indefensible. Now, there is an argument to be made about Evo Morales.
It's a very complex situation. Yeah.
Yeah, like the whole thing with the Supreme Court, his appointed Supreme Court, and giving himself beyond the original term limits and stuff. Like, but at the end of the day, what happened was the coup. The military demanded he step down. We ended up getting a leader who came in a very distant third place or something, who should have not been anywhere near the president's office or the high office of Bolivia. But that's a talk for another time. David Pakman, I think in most cases, like, we probably agree with him on 70-80% of the issues, and I think even the ones that we disagree on him with are, most of the time, except for maybe those few issues, is just a genuine disagreement in strategy. He is much more pragmatic than like a Jimmy Dore or I guess a Crystal Ball or someone of that nature. But yeah, I don't know, what do you think?
Pragmatism isn't all it's cracked up to be, especially when we're talking about like literal coups supported by capital in America. I think I think his video was a somewhat nuanced take on the situation, but it just felt very revisionist. It felt very much like he was telling like history but trying to be as nice as possible with it, when if you're purporting yourself as a journalist, or at least someone who speaks truth to power, at least on some level, you can't just say that we can debate whether or not it was a coup on whether or not, the military asked him or demanded him to leave. It's like if the military is involved in some kind of overthrowing of the government, there's a word for that. It's not. It's up for debate on whether or not Morales should have even proposed the extended term limits, but there's not necessarily like a debate on what happened after that. Like it's very clear cut. I think it was the New York Times or the Washington Post that actually like, well, they first posted about the OAS filing like claims like, about election fraud, and then like months after the whole thing had calmed down somewhat, they were like, oh well, the OAS information wasn't exactly super factual, so the coup or whatever happened in Bolivia might not have been completely justified. Who knows? Just like I felt like he didn't take time to examine all the information when it actually came out. He just kind of went with the right wing of the Democratic Party and just kind of jumped onto their side instead of actually taking a genuine look at what happened and taking your personal biases out of it.
I agree. Again, like the Bolivian coup and the I guess the Ilhan Omar stuff. Like that's definitely just negative points. I can't really defend that. I'm sure there's other. I wouldn't say totally reprehensible, but just views I just most progressives would heavily disagree with. I think his thing is he's pragmatic to a fault. He's basically the opposite of, I guess, again, like a Jimmy Dore, where he's completely idealistic and he doesn't really care as much about strategy or pragmatism. I think David Pakman is very much the opposite, and that's where you get a lot of his pitfalls. Mm-hmm. But I think that he is a very valuable tool for the left in that he very much breaks down policy and politics. He has an understanding of it that most leftists don't. Most YouTubers cannot break down policy in the way that he can. He's a super intelligent guy, and not to mention he's a very formidable debater. I remember his interview with Richard Spencer a few years back. He basically made him look like a complete fool, and he didn't even look that aggressive. He just sat there, dismantled him, and just ripped him to pieces in his debate. And not to mention, that's why when he gets some flack for, I guess he did a partnership with the Ayn Rand Institute a few years back where he debated Yaron Brooks. I didn't mind it as much because he went on there to basically debate Yaron Brooks, who's like a huge, I guess an egoist is what they call them, like a super free market libertarian. But he went on there, he debated them, he shredded them, and there you go. He has a lot of centrist sensibilities, I guess, or a few at least. But I do think in the end he is, for the most part, a progressive, Bernie supporter, a social democrat, believes in heavy welfare systems, higher minimum wage, health care, and things of that nature. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we are basically in agreement, which isn't really much when we're talking about our debate in general, but we're in agreement that he is progressive. How far that goes, I guess, just depends on the topic, because he does have, I wouldn't say right-wing, but like right-wing democratic views on just some foreign policy things I just have stark disagreements with, but
I agree.
He is a co-opter in my eyes, but I guess a progressive one. So that's my final stance on Mr. Pakman. What do you think?
I'd say that he has, I guess, I'm just going to say he's more moderate than the others, especially the big host, but even amongst like left tube in general, I think he is a moderate Democrat compared to the rest. But I think compared to the Overton window of the U.S., he is very much a left-winger. Again, like he's a social democrat who believes in strong welfare programs. He's easily to the left of most people in the U.S. It's just when we compare him to the broader span and you get to like BreadTube with the socialist and stuff like that, like it's YouTube, LeftTube just moving more left, and he's just more or less one of the more moderate ones. But I still think he's a progressive. I like his content. I'm gonna continue watching his content, and if you guys want to actually get a view of some of his opinions on certain subjects, we're gonna leave links down in the description box. So because we do not want to misrepresent his views in any way whatsoever. So just take a look. But yeah, like David Pakman. Anything else you want to say?
So, would you say he's a co-op or a comrade in your eyes?
I'd say I'd say mostly. I'd say he's mostly a comrade. I like him. I think he does good work, uh, even though there are a few things I have stark disagreements with him on.
All right, that's awesome. So, that's basically our thoughts and opinions on Mr. Pakman. You know, if you agree or disagree, just let us know, and we will see you on our next video. Goodbye.
Yeah, bye bye, guys.